Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Round Robin. I am your host, Tracy Preston, and with me is Christine Mulligan, Nina Mulligan, Regina Lindsay, Angela Sinclair, and of course, my husband, Todd Preston. Hey, everyone.
Hi. Hey. Hello. Hi.
Good evening.
On today's episode, we will be discussing the Francine Hughes episode. There was a book and a movie based on Francine's horrible experience of domestic abuse and rape from her husband, Mickey Hughes. As we've talked about in this episode, this was the first murder trial of a domestic abuse situation, which sparked the women's movement and brought many women out to the street to protest for women's rights and to free Francine Hughes. And I'm going to lead off this discussion reading an article from AAFP.org called Witnessing Domestic Violence, the Effects on Children, written by Melissa M. Stiles, MD, from the University of Wisconsin, Madison Medical School in Madison, Wisconsin. Domestic violence is an ongoing experience of physical, psychologic, and or sexual abuse in the home that is used to establish power and control over another person. Although awareness about the rate of domestic violence in our society is increasing, the public health ramifications have only recently been recognized in the medical community. The majority of the medical literature to date has focused on the effects of domestic violence on the primary victim. What effect does witnessing domestic violence have on secondary victims, such as children who live in homes where partner abuse occurs? It is estimated that 3.2 million American children witness incidents of domestic violence annually. Witnessing domestic violence can lead children to develop an array of age-dependent negative effects. Research in this area has focused on the cognitive, behavioral, and emotional effects of domestic violence. Children who witness violence in the home and children who are abused may display many similar psychological effects. These children are at greater risk for internalized behaviors such as anxiety and depression, and for externalized behaviors such as fighting, bullying, lying, or cheating. They also are more disobedient at home and at school, and are more likely to have social competence problems, such as poor school performance and difficulty in relationships with others. Child witnesses display inappropriate attitudes about violence as a means of resolving conflict and indicate a greater willingness to use violence themselves. Although there is a general agreement that children from violent homes have more emotional and behavioral problems than those from nonviolent homes, the research in this area has a number of limitations. The sample sizes are generally small, usually composed of shelter participants, and the studies generally have a retrospective design. A number of variables are not controlled, such as gender, socioeconomic status, intelligence, cultural background, and social support. Many of these children also experience abrupt school and home changes and parental separation that can have a significant effect on their development. Another potential confounding variable is that many of these children undergo direct abuse. How can the effects of witnessing violence be distinguished from the effects of direct abuse? Research in this area has focused on the cognitive, behavioral, and emotional effects of witnessing domestic violence. More research is needed to develop appropriate screening tools and intervention strategies for children who are at risk. Preschool-age children who witness intimate violence may develop a range of problems, including psychosomatic complaints such as headaches and abdominal pain. They also can display regressive behaviors such as enuresis, thumb sucking, and sleep disturbances. During the preschool years, children turn to their parents for protection and stability, but these needs are often disrupted in families with partner abuse. Increased anxiety around strangers and behaviors such as whining, crying, and clinging may occur. Nighttime problems such as insomnia and parasomnias are more frequent in this age group. Children in this age group who have witnessed domestic violence also may show signs of terror, manifested by yelling, irritability, hiding, and stuttering. So I just want to throw out a couple things. So some of the effects, potential effects in children who witness violence. So when you have infants, needs for attachment is disruptive. They have poor sleeping habits, eating problems, and a higher risk for physical injury. Preschool children will lack feelings of safety, separation and stranger anxiety, regressive behaviors, insomnia, parasomnias. School-age children display self-blame, somatic problems, aggressive behaviors, regressive behaviors, and in adolescence display school truancy, delinquency, substance abuse, and early sexual activity. So I'm going to open it up to the team and see what you guys have to say.
Well, ugh. I was waiting for you to say like everything that was wrong with me as a child. But at the same time, I was surrounded by a lot of aggression, but nothing like overtly, like I've never witnessed any rapes or I've never witnessed anybody get brutally assaulted, other than fistfights and bar brawls and what have you. But I don't know. I feel like, are we stretching it too much to kind of fit like any deviant behavior from a child is because they were traumatized? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think I talked about this in the original episode. I wasn't a direct witness to any of it happening, but with my neighbor lady, being so brutally beat and just treated so badly all the time, and I was a young kid, and I didn't even live in that house, and just the knowledge and the seeing her coming down the road for help to my mom, and how it still affects me still. Remember seeing this poor woman that nobody could help. Nobody would help. And here I am years later, I still get choked up when I think about seeing this poor lady walking down the road, basically dragging her legs because she's been beat so bad. Plus she had multiple strokes. So.
But does that not lead to that you actually became more empathetic toward situations like that instead of more aggressive about it, right? Because that's essentially what we're talking about, right? Like children that are abused. Well, obviously, children that are abused usually do carry on the abuse, the whole generational trauma thing. I completely think that tracks. But some of what they started alluding to in all of the statistical referencing that Tracy just read about, they were kind of like blanketing. I don't know. I feel like it's a slippery slope when we do the blame game. Like sometimes there's just a few screws loose if kids or even adults act out violently. Like it's not always someone else's fault or it's not always something that they've experienced. Sometimes they have a problem, right? However, when it is the case where they've been abused or they witness abuse, like it's a 50-50 shot, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so, Christine, right? Because I'll share a small personal story. And maybe this is why I don't like conflict. So my mother was married to a man who, had a little bit of a drinking problem, did some things to my sister. And I clearly remember being in elementary school. Of course, my mom's door was shut to her bedroom and I could hear him hitting her. I could hear her cries, begging him to stop. Please stop, don't. And I could hear the sound of him hitting her. Now, I never saw it. And I can't even say that it was something that was frequent. Maybe once or twice I heard it, but it's something that I've tucked back into the back of my brain. And I just remember I was powerless to do anything about it. And I remember running down into the basement and just sitting on the floor, covering my ears and just screaming at the top of my lungs, stop. And it was just once that I heard, once or twice that I heard that. And I carry that with me. And I'm not an aggressive person. I've never been aggressive. I've never hurt anybody. I'm always fighting for the underdog. So there's the other 50-50 bag, Christine. Right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Instances like that where you've witnessed it, I believe witnessing or being around it or affected by it, I want to believe that actually gives you more empathy towards others, that you may see signs that they're in situations like that. However, those that have been victim of violence or the victim of abuse, that I see the clear delineation that they're more likely to. However, there's still, a mixed bag of percentages where they come out quite the opposite of like, this happened to me and I will never let it happen again, not only by me, but by others around me. Like you said, like fighting for all the underdogs or abused even themselves. Do you know what I mean? Whereas everything you read, or maybe I was listening wrong, I don't know, but everything that you were reading, they were saying if you were affected by it in any way, shape, or form, you're more likely to carry it on. But I kind of like some of it's the opposite. It actually gives an insight and empathy.
I think there are two kinds of people that come out of an abusive home, honestly. And I think there are abusers, and I think there are the ones that are of the mind that I may not have learned anything from my parents other than how I can't be. I don't want to be that. I have a cousin that grew up in a very abusive home, and I remember when she was pregnant with her first child. I mean, she was like, I'm starting therapy. She started therapy because she was terrified that she was going to do to her children what was done to her. So, yeah, I think that while witnessing and being exposed to abuse definitely sort of predispose you one way or the other, I feel like girls learn how to expect to be treated in relationships by watching how their mother is treated. And I feel like our sons learn how they are expected to treat others by watching how their fathers or the male role models in their lives treat the women around them. So it definitely plays a part. My home life, there was some abuse going on, and sometimes it was directed at me, but most of the time it wasn't. And a lot of times it wasn't something that I necessarily even saw in real time. The bits and pieces of it I did see were bad. And it definitely gives you, a different perspective when you enter relationships as you get older. And again, there are two types of people, because the one cousin I was referencing has ended up in multiple abusive relationships. And I guess to some degree, I have too. Mine have not been physically abusive. I don't hit people. I don't tolerate being hit. You know what I mean? So I guess similar scenarios, but different outcomes. And some of what Tracy listed off, like the being clingy and having a lot of stranger anxiety, some of that is normal child development. Not every child that's very clingy to their parent, or not every child that is shy or afraid of strangers has necessarily witnessed abuse. Not every child that has enuresis, which for those of you that aren't clinical is bedwetting, or inability to control your bladder. Not everybody that has that has necessarily been exposed to abuse either. Some people just have, a neurological deficit. My daughter, due to neurological issues, had struggled with that until she was older. So, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I think because of what I was exposed to as a little girl in elementary school, I, like you, Regina, would never, and everyone I've ever been with, they understand very clearly, I will never, ever be touched by you. You know what I mean? Never, because the first time is the last time. Mental abuse, yeah, I've dealt with that from past relationships, but never a physical. I will never, ever tolerate that. And it comes from those experiences that I had. Now, granted, I'm sure there was more abuse that I didn't have to hear, but I never saw it. And that, I couldn't even imagine being a child and watching my father just full on fist clench, beat my mother like a man. I just don't even know what that would do to someone mentally. Like, you would have to be really, really strong and have, a very loving mother. mean, what do you do when you have, a mother who's abused, but yet still can't love the children because of the abuse? That's a whole nother bag.
Yeah, I think I was hyper focused on like listening and taking in what you were saying at the beginning. Because as we're talking about it, this is what we talk about all the time, nurture versus nature. I think the nurture aspect most definitively shapes you. But I don't know if the direction can be as easily foreseen as what you were talking about kind of alludes to, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, or did I get too?
I think that's why the article said that there were issues with their ability to really collect great data, because most children that grow up in a home that's abusive, where their mother is being abused or their father, or their, one of the parents is abusing the other, most of the time the children are also abused at some point. And so it's really difficult to separate the two from each other, but also because the sample size is kind of small. So with a grain of salt a little bit.
Agreed. And also, we all come from different places. Because, like, I hear you guys talking and I hear it, I validate it, and I completely understand it. But from my perspective, and I want to kind of just put it on where I'm from and, the nature of everyone in that area. I've seen men and women, husband and wives, fist fight, go to blows. And it was kind of like normal. Dare I say that? I know I sound insane saying that. It was normal, but a lot of the women that I knew were they were toe to toe with their husband. Do you know what I'm saying? There was no damsel in distress in any of those situations that I can remember. But at the same time, we were all well versed in boys don't hit girls and men don't hit women. But at the same time, if you guys were in a fight and you were going to blows about it, if he pushed you really hard or smacked you in the back of the head and you turned around and clocked him in his face, like, that was normal. I say sheepishly in my life. Is that crazy? And I don't think that it was bad. I don't think that it was right. But fighting is never right. But I don't necessarily think that it's as bad as abuse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. I think it's a cultural thing. Like you said, it's like in your area, that was kind of normal, and there, in a lot of areas, it's kind of normal. It doesn't make it right. And I think like what you guys were all saying, I think it's all right. Like, I grew up in an abusive home. My mother was an amazing, amazing woman who is my hero to this day, because I don't know how she did it, and she did it for us kids, but I turned out the way I did, and I was at the hands of abuse, and I saw abuse, but there's no way in hell that I could ever be like that. But then you have the other spectrum of kids who see abuse or have been abused and they become abusers. It's all about breaking that cycle and mentally how you function. And I think the studies have a difficult time with that because no person is alike. Just like Christine, you're so different because that was kind of normal for you. You understand it and empathize with it, but at the same time, it's different. It's different for every single person and how we react. I think that's the important thing, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about what Christine was just saying, and how it is kind of normalized, at least in the culture that she was living. And I've not seen anybody smacking each other around as far as couples go, but I've been around couples that talk horrible to each other, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I would never say anything like that to Tracy. I would never say anything in that kind of tone or anything like that. But they know that each other is fucking around. They don't really mean it. I saw a meme today, and it was like, well, no, it was a meme. It was a video. This older couple, God, they had to have been in their 80s, and the older man says to his wife and whoever they're talking to, she only hears half of what I say anyways. And then she turned to him. She says, well, half of what you say is stupid. But they're both in their late 80s, so something's right,
Right.
Right. Actually, I just had an epiphany moment. I know this is going to sound messed up, but maybe some of our listeners will kind of get it. But maybe I'm just going to get blasted for everything that I'm saying on this episode. But anyway, maybe it's really not about the action. Because like Tracy and Regina were saying, oh, I don't tolerate if anybody ever hit me, that's it. Game over. One time, that's it. But like, even in my previous marriage, to my still best friend, we had very many fights. But neither one of us got really hurt. And we never fought around the kids. Like, we had rules about our fighting, but we didn't have any rules about the fight, if that makes sense. So even using myself as an example, I think it's not really about the actions that happen. It's the feeling and the temperament behind the actions. Like, that's what makes abuse abuse. Whenever there is one person in any given situation that feels violated in any way, right? Because for abuse, like, if you said to me, go fuck yourself, I'd be like, okay. You know what I mean? No harm, no foul. You didn't mess me up in any way. But if you said it to someone more sensitive, like my wife, and I told her to go fuck herself, she'd be like, why? What happened? What'd I do? And she'd be devastated, So maybe it's the affront. And
well, yeah, I mean, there's a difference too between, like you were talking about, where you've got a couple and they're both upset, very passionate about what they're arguing about, and they exchange blows. And I feel like that's still, it is abusive, by the way, but it's not the same as someone who is not physically as powerful or who cannot physically fight back. It's a difference between a couple exchanging blows in the street and between somebody dragging their wife into the street and beating her ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though both are abusive.
The intent and the affront to it. Like, the malice. The malice of it all. Yeah, but like what I mean is, like, when one person, when it's unbalanced, I don't even know how to describe what the hell I'm talking about. I don't know. But yes, I agree. I know by definition it's all abuse, but I feel like nurture and nature play into what's normal for you. I guess it's like anything in life, right? Like, some people like crunchy peanut butter and some people like smooth peanut butter.
But I think also
it's all peanut butter.
We're looking at this from a Gen X perspective. What they thought they didn't do to us was abusive of their parents. And then what we didn't do to our kids, we felt was abusive of our parents. So, like, we redefine the definition of abuse. And I think that as a collective culture of beings, our goal will be at some point that abuse won't exist, because we will literally define it out of existence. That is the, I think, philosophical, ethereal perspective.
We hope,
right?
We don't go backward. Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to move forward.
I would agree with that thought process to say that hopefully as a society we're getting better overall because we're defining what is abusive. Because if any one of us lived in the 1900s and saw how certain people were treated, I'm sure all of us would want to hang them by their toenails for abuse in town square, right?
Very true.
Yeah.
Wait a second, we did live in the 1900s.
I mean 1900 through 1910.
Oh, okay.
The first 10 years of the 1900s. 1901, 1902.
Well, that's been part of the problem, though, as well. I mean, in the cases of children seeing abuse, a lot of that, up until now, pretty much, no-fault divorce didn't become a thing everywhere in the United States until 2010. And it was first introduced in 1969. So there really wasn't a lot of avenues for our parents and our grandmothers, and they stuck in their marriage because they couldn't go anywhere else. How do you protect children from that?
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? Those kids grew up not even understanding that wasn't normal because that was their normal. And it probably wasn't until they stepped out of their childhood home that they experienced anything new. And so as those generations, I think culturally and collectively for that time, the revolution that was coming about in the 60s was the awakening of not doing the same shit that our parents are doing because it's not working. And we are actually at the same precipice right now as we were back then.
Well, each generation.
From a societal perspective, though, because now we're talking about some things being taken out of the registry, right, for human rights. And in that same time period then, which was also at the time of the Aquarius, right, which is what we are in right now as well, is a rebirth and a reawakening for society to move in the right direction. So I think this is perfect.
Okay, she's getting to...
It all connects, though. Okay. It does all connect, though. But when we had those things in place finally, and then people could get away from abusive relationships, then I think we started to understand and see collectively our children getting better. So because women could get out of divorce, they could get out with divorce.
So collectively, synopsing that real quick, is normalcy was born out of societal time.
We're redefining normal all the time.
Okay, somebody else jumped in before.
Right, I get where she's coming from. You know, when you were talking about the early 1900s, there was an agreed upon normalcy. As we progress, and we got a long way to go, but Nina's point is our views of what's normal changes with everything as we continue on. We learn that it's all lessons. And I think we're at a point now where we're starting to see more of it, or at least it's more visible to us because it's happening and it's different from what didn't happen in the past.
Right. And also think about how normal it was to spank your kids for everything. Spank, 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 spank. That's how you parented. And look at where we are today with children being spanked. I think it's much less. I think it's occurring much, much less than what it used to occur because that was how you parented. You smack the shit out of your kids. And so people are like, that's not really the way to do it because it is some form of abuse. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna exert physical harm on you so that you do what I want you to do.
Exactly. Physical pain shouldn't be the teacher. You know what I mean?
Well, I had several, conversations since I've been an adult about, how ironic it was as a child being in public and my father would smack me and then I would start crying and he's like, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And I'm like, you literally just hit me. Like, what else is there for you to do? Give me something to cry about. And why is my crying now not an appropriate response to being physically assaulted in public? But yeah, that was normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Air quotes.
Right.
That's what happened.
I want to bring you back for 1 second just by that thing, because I've had that discussion with other people before too, and it's kind of a mind trip. When our parents would hit us and then say, I'm going to give you something to cry about, that is because in their mind, that wallop nothing to cry about.
That's what I just said. That was my whole theory. You just said it. That's what I just said.
Yeah, I understand your premise, babe. But when you start going into stars and the Aquarius and all of that, I get a little nervous that you're going to just dive down a deep hole in nothingness and lose everybody.
I am who I am, and the people who will gravitate towards me shall do so, and with happiness, okay? And they'll be my fans. All right, thank you. You have your fans, I'll have mine. They'll know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
I'm kind of on Team Nina for this one.
Finally, somebody's on my team.
All right.
All good points. So, how about we do a little shift? Do you want to shift?
Yeah, let's shift to the spookiness of the season, yo.
Yeah, so today is the 28th of October, and Halloween is just a couple days away, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, so when this show airs, it'll be Halloween Eve.
It will be.
Oh, All Hallows Eve.
Right, yo. I'm actually really excited. Actually, I get excited every year. I don't know why. I still feel like a kid. I still like to get dressed up. I still like to act parts, and I still love candy.
That's
All
true.
good things.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I always loved Halloween, but now that I'm getting older, my kids are older, other than handing out candy to the kids, like, that's it. Like, Halloween's kind of boring. And yeah, I get invited to the costume parties, you know, and I'm like, it's so much work. It's just too much work. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not that old, but I'm feeling like I'm old this year.
Well, don't you get dressed up?
I'm not planning on it. No,
but we hand out full-size candy bars.
Oh my gosh.
That's how we redeem ourselves.
We don't. You know what? We get so many kids every year. We have to have the littlest candy we can find, and we have to get like a lot of it because every year since we've been here, even though we continue to get more candy, we still run out every year.
Yeah.
We get more and more kids every year.
Yeah, I mean, I am in a smaller community, and my community is like, I don't know what Gestapo is, as far as I'm concerned. They only open, I don't really even know what this means, but this is what it says in the flyers everywhere. Our community is open from 5 to 9 for trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
So, and we're not, like, there's rules. They have rules in my community. I don't necessarily subscribe to their rules, but everybody else seems to, because we don't get anyone before the time that they're allowed and no one after. And even though it's a small window, there's not that many kids that come, probably because they think we're just all mean in here. I don't know. But I did buy 200 bars of candy.
Holy crap.
Is it an assisted living community?
No, and it's not even really gated, even though my sign says gated community. It's not gated. We don't have a gate. There's no remnants of a gate ever.
Well, there's some people, some neighbors you might have that might have a backyard gate or something. So.
I mean, we all have fences, but there's no gate to the community is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's gated. There's a few here and there.
Yeah, they do. They have a time frame, and it's good that there's a time. We have that as well. It's 5 to 9 as well, because if there was not a time frame,
yeah,
they'd be knocking on your door all damn night.
Well, it gets dark so early too, and I think so. It starts at 5, so the little ones can go out before it gets dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you just turn your light off on your porch and lock the door and go to bed, like when you're done handing out candy.
That works. That works for us.
If the porch light isn't on, the parents know not to come and have the children come and knock on your door.
Yeah.
I think we should just change Halloween altogether and just make it the last Saturday of October. Like that way, it's always fun day. It's always a fun day. Who wants to go trick-or-treating on a Wednesday?
Right.
Doesn't sound fun to you? Tuesday. Let's go trick-or-treat on Tuesday. No. You want to be Saturday. You want to be up all night. You want to be counting candy. You want to be eating it.
Okay, well, you're going to lose some of your fans, Miss Astrologist.
Yeah, let's just change the official date and Americanize it more.
I'm not saying that, you can't. I'm not saying that there won't be, it should just be like a national rule that everybody just goes trick-or-treating on the last Saturday of October. Not that the 31st doesn't have its own special meaning. I'm just saying, for the purpose of making it fun.
Be history correct and call it what it actually is, and then Halloween can be the American bastardization of it. Agreed.
Right, we'll just reschedule it for when it's more convenient for everyone involved.
We'll call it Halloween 1 and Halloween 2.
The American way, bitches.
I would be good with a
we'll
Halloween
go back to
one
calling
or
it
two.
Samhain or Samhain.
Samhain.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of like the Saturday thing because I agree. It's dumb.
I know. I got to use a vacation day if it happens to be on midweek. But
Yeah. So I vote for Nina.
I
What I
vote
would
for
do
you.
Yay, that's 2 wins for me.
Yeah. Well, remember the days, ladies, when we were all working in the hospital, and heaven forbid you were working on Halloween because trying to get home, get your child dressed in a costume and out the door to trick or treat before everything shut down. It was a whole ordeal.
Agreed. I'm with Todd. When my kids were little, I used to have to take the night off because I worked nights. So I would have to take the night off on Halloween because, what are you kidding me? I was not going to miss Halloween with my kids. Bafangul, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I had to work night shift for, over a decade straight. So, like, during the whole time my kids were growing up, I was on nights.
Yeah, that's... Well, I think we should move it to Saturday.
Yep.
And...
Have the observed day still, though, like Nina said.
Yeah.
She made that amendment, and that made sense to me, and that's what put me on her team again.
I actually am in agreement because then we can actually repair history and name the 31st the day that it should be. Agreed.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's done. Where's my gavel?
Another thing we fixed. What did you
know what?
First time, Tracy? We fixed it.
And we fixed it.
Stop the builder.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Well, listen, guys, I think we should wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful Halloween. Be safe out there. Thank you for coming back and listening. As always, we appreciate you. So have a great week, everyone. Have a safe and happy Halloween. And next year, it'll be on a Saturday.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Goodbye.
Whoa. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.